What would you do if something dying appeared at your door in the middle of the night? For Axel, a veteran living 40 miles from civilization, that question became reality at 2 a.m. He'd moved to Montana to escape, to forget, to be alone. But when he heard the scratching, soft, desperate, fading, he knew someone needed him. He opened the door expecting a deer, maybe a fox. Instead, he found 2 German shepherd puppies, frozen, alone, hours from death, and no mother in sight. Where are you watching this story from? Drop it in the comments. We'd love to know. And if stories like this move you, don't forget to leave a like. Now get ready, because what Axel does next will restore your faith in humanity. Axel had been living alone in his Montana mountain cabin for 2 years. It was a choice. No one had forced him there. Family, friends, therapy, they'd all tried to help, but none of it worked because they didn't understand that a man who'd come back from war needed silence, needed distance from people, needed to not hear the question, "How are you?" Because the answer was always the same: "I'm not okay. And I never will be." Afghanistan had changed him. The things he'd seen there, the things he'd done, the people he'd lost, they all lived in his head, every night, every quiet moment. After his discharge, he'd returned to Virginia, tried to stay with family, tried to be normal, but normal was impossible. Noises made him flinch, crowds suffocated him, people exhausted him. 6 months later, he moved to Montana, bought a cabin 40 miles out, had electricity, had water, no internet, no neighbors, just forest, mountains, silence. The first winter was hell. Snow started in November and didn't stop until April. Temperature dropped to -30. Wind rattled the cabin walls, but Axel didn't care. He hunted, chopped wood, survived. People talked about him. The locals knew him as the crazy vet. He'd come once a month, buy supplies, disappear. Never spoke to anyone, never made eye contact, just existed. But existing wasn't the same as living. Axel knew that. Every morning he'd wake up, make coffee, look out the window, and remind himself why he was here. Because here, he couldn't hurt anyone, and no one could hurt him. It was that simple. It was mid-January, the coldest time of year. Temperature had dropped to -35, snow was knee-deep. Axel was prepared. Woodpile was full, food stocked, generator running. No need to go outside, didn't have to see anyone for weeks. Perfect. That night started like any other. He ate dinner, canned stew and hard bread, sat by the fireplace, read a book, went to bed at 11. Sleep didn't come easy, it never did. But Axel knew how to wait. He'd close his eyes, breathe. Eventually, exhaustion would win. At 2 a.m., the scratching began. At first, he thought it was part of his dream, but then it came again, more insistent. Axel opened his eyes, lay in the darkness, listening. Silence. Then, again. Scratch, 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 soft but deliberate, coming from the door. Axel got up, pulled on his coat, put on his boots, grabbed his rifle. Out here, something knocking at your door in the middle of the night was either injured or dangerous. Sometimes both. Could be a bear or a wolf, maybe a mountain lion, but the scratching was too light. He moved to the window, looked out. Snow was falling, heavy, silent. Moonlight illuminated the drifts. He couldn't see anything. The scratching came again, weaker this time, and then a sound, high-pitched, thin, desperate, a whimper. Axel's heart raced. That sound, it was familiar. A puppy. He lowered the gun, rushed to the door, threw the bolt, pulled it open. Cold rushed in. Wind hit his face. But Axel didn't feel it, because there on the threshold, in the snow, sat 2 German shepherd puppies, tiny, shaking, eyes barely open. Ice clung to their fur. Their paws were bleeding. Their bodies convulsed uncontrollably. They were dying. God! Axel dropped to his knees, reached out. One of the puppies, the darker one, looked at him with those tiny eyes and whimpered. Axel's heart broke. "Come on, come inside, come on!" But the puppies had no strength to move. Axel scooped them into his arms, 2 small, trembling bodies. They weighed almost nothing. He carried them inside, kicked the door shut, ran to the fireplace, laid them on the blankets. "Hang on, okay? Hang on." The puppies didn't move, just lay there, eyes half closed, breathing. Axel moved. He heated water, found towels, pulled out his field medical kit, then returned to the puppies. He dried them, gently, carefully. Chunks of ice fell from their fur. He checked their paws. Bleeding. Frostbite, but the toes were still there. Good sign. He wrapped them in blankets, positioned them near the fire. Then he prepared warm water, not too hot, just warm. Added a drop of honey. He dipped his finger in the water, touched it to one puppy's mouth. The puppy didn't lick. "Come on, you need to drink." He tried again. This time the puppy licked, weak. But it licked. Axel grabbed a small bowl, held it gently to the puppy's lips. The puppy drank, just a few drops, but it drank. He did the same with the other puppy. This one was stronger, drank more. "Good boys, good boys." Axel sat back, watched them. The puppies lay in the blankets, still shaking but less, still breathing, alive, for now. Axel threw more wood on the fire, watched the flames rise. Then he went to the window, looked out, into the darkness, into the snow. "Where's the mother?" he whispered, but there was no answer, just the howl of the wind. Axel put on his boots, grabbed his coat, took the lantern, stepped outside. The cold was merciless. The wind burned his skin, but Axel didn't care. He pointed the lantern at the snow. There were paw prints, small ones, a trail leading to the cabin. Axel followed it, 20 steps, 30. Then he stopped. There was a shape in the snow, covered in white, motionless. Axel approached. It was a dog, German Shepherd, female, young, dead. Axel knelt, brushed the snow off her. The dog's eyes were closed. Her body was frozen, but on her face, there was peace. Axel understood. This mother had used her last strength to bring her babies here, to safety, to a light. Then she'd completed her mission and let go. "I'm sorry," Axel whispered. "I'm so sorry." He stroked the dog's fur, then stood, went back inside, checked the puppies again, still sleeping, but breathing. Axel sat on the blanket, leaned his back against the wall, and watched. When morning came, the puppies moved, small movements, an ear twitch, a paw shift. Axel leaned forward. "Hey there." One of the puppies, the dark one, opened his eyes, looked at Axel, and tried to wag his tail. Axel smiled. For the first time in 2 years, he really smiled. "Hey, little guy." The puppy whimpered, a weak but hopeful sound. The other puppy woke, the smaller one, lighter colored. 2 pairs of eyes looked at him, hungry, scared, but alive. "All right," Axel spoke softly. "Let's get you some food." He went to the kitchen. What did he have? Chicken broth, rice, plain chicken. He made a mixture, soft, digestible. Put it in front of the puppies. They sniffed, hesitated, then ate. Slowly at first, then desperately. Axel watched them, these tiny creatures, fighting to survive. Their mother had given everything to get them here. To him. Why him? He didn't know. But watching them eat, watching them fight, watching them live, something inside him shifted. For 2 years he'd been surviving, just existing, just waiting. But these puppies, they weren't just surviving, they were fighting, with everything they had. And maybe he could too. The puppies finished eating, looked up at him with big eyes, waiting. "Okay," Axel said. "You can stay." He didn't know why he said it. He'd never wanted pets, never wanted responsibility, never wanted anything that could be taken from him. But looking at these 2, orphaned, abandoned, fighting, he couldn't turn them away. Wouldn't. The darker puppy wobbled toward him, tiny steps, collapsed at his feet, looked up and licked his hand. Axel's throat tightened. He reached down, stroked the puppy's head. "You're gonna make it," he whispered, "both of you. I promise." The puppy's tail wagged, and for the first time in 2 years, Axel felt something other than emptiness. He felt purpose. Over the next hours, Axel worked. He made a warm nest by the fire, gathered all his blankets, created a safe space. He fed the puppies every 2 hours, small amounts, warm water, soft food. He checked their paws, cleaned the wounds, applied ointment. He watched them sleep, watched them breathe, made sure they stayed warm, and slowly they got stronger. By afternoon, the darker puppy was walking, wobbly, but walking. The lighter one was slower, weaker, but trying. Axel named them. The dark one, strong, determined fighter, was Ash. The light one, gentle, cautious survivor, was Frost. "Ash and Frost," Axel said, testing the names. Ash barked, a tiny puppy bark. Frost wagged his tail. "All right then." That evening, Axel went back outside. He found the mother still lying in the snow. He couldn't leave her there. He grabbed a shovel, started digging. The ground was frozen solid. It took an hour, but he dug. A grave, deep enough, respectful. He carried the mother's body, laid her gently inside. "Thank you," he said, "for trusting me, for bringing them here." He covered her with earth, marked the spot with stones, stood there in the cold, and made a promise. "I'll take care of them. I swear." The wind answered with silence, but Axel felt understood. He went back inside. Ash and Frost were playing, gentle puppy wrestling. They stopped when they saw him, ran to him. Well, Ash ran. Frost wobbled. Both jumped at his legs. Axel knelt, let them climb on him, their tiny paws, their warm breath, their trust. "Okay," he said. "We're a team now." And deep inside, something that had been dead for 2 years started beating again. The first week was the hardest. Axel had survived combat, had endured firefights, explosions, months in hostile territory. But nothing had prepared him for taking care of 2 half-frozen puppies. They needed constant attention, feeding every 2 hours, warmth monitoring, paw wound cleaning, bathroom help. He didn't sleep more than 90 minutes at a time, but he didn't complain. Because every time he looked at Ash and Frost, every time he saw them getting stronger, he remembered why he was doing this. Their mother had trusted him. With her last breath, she'd brought them to his door. He wouldn't let her down. On the second day, Frost stopped eating. Axel noticed it during the morning feeding. Ash ate eagerly, his little tail wagging, but Frost just lay there, not interested. "Come on, buddy, you need to eat." Axel tried hand feeding, tried warming the food more, tried adding different flavors. Nothing worked. Frost just looked at him with tired eyes, and Axel felt panic rise in his chest. No, not this one, not after everything. He checked Frost's temperature, slightly elevated, checked his paws. One of them was swollen, red, infected. Damn it! Axel cleaned the wound again, applied antibiotic ointment he had from his military med kit, wrapped it carefully, but Frost still wouldn't eat. By evening, the puppy was weaker, breathing shallow. Axel sat beside him, stroking his soft fur. "You have to fight," he whispered. "Your mom fought to get you here. You have to fight too." Frost's eyes fluttered open, looked at him, then closed again. Axel stayed up all night. He held Frost against his chest, shared his body heat, talked to him softly, told him stories about the mountains, about survival, about why giving up wasn't an option. Ash curled up beside them, as if he understood his brother needed support. At 4 a.m., Frost whimpered. Axel looked down. The puppy's eyes were open, and he was licking his lips, hungry. "Oh, thank God." Axel prepared warm broth, fed it to Frost slowly. The puppy drank. Not much, but enough. "That's it. Good boy, keep going." By morning, Frost was eating solid food again. The infection in his paw was responding to treatment. He was going to make it. Axel leaned back against the wall, exhausted but relieved. Ash climbed into his lap. Frost wobbled over and collapsed beside him. 2 tiny puppies, trusting him completely. "We're going to be okay," Axel said, more to himself than to them. And for the first time, he believed it. The days turned into a routine. Wake at dawn, feed the puppies, clean their space, check their wounds, play with them, gentle wrestling, teaching them to fetch, letting them explore the cabin, feed them again, nap together by the fire, feed again. At night, Axel would sit with them, the puppies curled up against him, and he'd feel something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. The nightmares didn't stop. He still woke up sweating, heart racing, seeing faces of the men he'd lost. But now, when he woke up, there were 2 warm bodies pressed against him, Ash and Frost, breathing, alive, depending on him, and it helped. It didn't fix everything, didn't erase the trauma, but it helped. By the second week, the puppies were thriving. Their wounds had healed, their fur had grown back soft and thick, their energy was boundless. Ash was bold and adventurous. He'd explore every corner of the cabin, bark at shadows, try to drag things twice his size. Frost was gentler, more cautious. He'd follow Ash's lead, but always looked back to make sure Axel was watching. They were brothers, but different, and Axel loved them both. One morning he took them outside for the first time. The snow had eased, the sun was out, temperature had risen to an almost bearable -10. Axel bundled himself up, opened the door. Ash bolted out immediately, dove into the snow, disappeared completely, popped back up, covered in white, barking excitedly. Frost was more hesitant, stepped carefully onto the porch, sniffed the air, then slowly followed his brother. Axel watched them play, two puppies, tumbling in the snow, chasing each other, discovering the world. Their mother's grave was visible from here. The stones Axel had carefully placed. He looked at it, then at the puppies. "They're doing good," he said softly. "I'm keeping my promise." The wind rustled through the trees, and Axel felt somehow that she heard him. That afternoon, disaster struck. Axel was chopping wood behind the cabin. The puppies were playing nearby, supervised but given space to explore. He heard Ash bark, not a playful bark, an alarm. Axel dropped the axe, ran toward the sound. Ash was at the edge of the tree line, barking frantically at something. Frost was beside him, tail tucked, scared, and in front of them, a fox. Not large, but wild, cornered, teeth bared. The fox lunged. Ash yelped, jumped back. "Hey!" Axel shouted. Ran forward, waved his arms. The fox turned, saw the much larger threat, and ran, disappeared into the forest. Axel dropped to his knees, checked Ash, a scratch on his nose, not deep, but bleeding. "You stupid, brave little idiot," Axel muttered, applying pressure with his sleeve. Ash licked his face. Frost pressed against Axel's leg, shaking. "It's okay. You're both okay." But Axel's heart was still racing. He'd almost lost them, in seconds, because he'd looked away. That night, he made a decision. He couldn't keep them locked inside forever. But he also couldn't let them roam without protection. He needed to train them, not just basic commands, real training, survival training, the kind of training that would keep them alive. Starting tomorrow. The training began at dawn. Axel had trained military working dogs in the army. He knew the principles: consistency, patience, positive reinforcement, but also discipline, structure, safety. He started simple. Sit. Ash tilted his head, looked confused. Axel gently pressed his rear down. Sit. The moment Ash's butt hit the ground, Axel gave him a treat. Good boy. They repeated it 20 times. By the end of the session, Ash was sitting on command. Frost took longer. He was more cautious, less food motivated, but eventually he got it too. Stay. This was harder. Axel would put them in a sit, then take a step back. Ash would immediately follow. No, stay. Back to position. Try again. It took days, but slowly they learned. Sit, stay, come, down, the basics. Then Axel moved to outdoor training. Recall practice in the snow, teaching them to come immediately when called no matter what, teaching them to stay close, to check in, to respond to hand signals, teaching them danger awareness, how to recognize threats, when to bark, when to run. Ash was a natural, bold, confident, eager to please. Frost was slower but more thoughtful. He'd analyze before acting. Both were smart, and both were survivors. By the third week, they'd made incredible progress, but Axel knew they needed more than he could provide. They needed vaccinations, professional vet check, socialization, which meant going to town. Axel hadn't been to town in 2 months. The thought made his chest tight. People, questions, noise. But looking at Ash and Frost playing by the fire, healthy and happy because of him, he'd do it. For them. The drive to town took an hour. Axel had built a secure crate in the truck bed, insulated and heated. Ash and Frost rode together, peering out with curious eyes. The town, if you could call it that, was called Timber Ridge. Population 847, one main street, a general store, a diner, a gas station, and Dr. Helena Reeves, the only veterinarian within 60 miles. Axel parked outside her clinic, sat in the truck for a moment, breathed. You can do this. He got out, opened the crate. Ash bounded out immediately, tail wagging. Frost followed more cautiously. Axel attached their leashes, improvised from paracord and climbing clips, walked to the clinic door. Inside, a bell chimed. The waiting room was small, clean, smelled like antiseptic and dog shampoo. A woman in her early 50s stood behind the counter, graying hair pulled back, kind eyes, wearing scrubs with paw prints. Dr. Reeves. She looked up, saw Axel, then saw the puppies. Her expression softened immediately. Well, hello there, she said, coming around the counter. And who are these handsome boys? Ash and Frost, Axel said quietly. Found them 3 weeks ago, frozen. Mother died. Dr. Reeves knelt down, let the puppy sniff her hand. Ash immediately tried to lick her. Frost hung back but wagged his tail. They're beautiful, she said, then looked up at Axel. You saved them. Their mother did. I just didn't let her down. Dr. Reeves smiled. Come on back. The examination was thorough. She checked everything. Weight, temperature, heart, lungs, eyes, ears, teeth, paws. Frostbite damage here, she noted, looking at Frost's paw. But it healed well. You did good work. Axel said nothing. She continued checking. They're underweight, but not severely. Good muscle tone considering. No signs of parasites. Surprising. Probably too young to have picked them up yet. She prepared vaccinations. This will sting a bit, boys. Ash yelped but recovered quickly, licking her hand as if to forgive her. Frost whimpered but stayed still. Brave boys, Dr. Reeves said. She handed Axel a list. Feeding schedule, vitamin supplements, next vaccination date, deworming protocol, training recommendations. Axel looked at the list. It was long. This is a lot. Puppies are a lot, Dr. Reeves said with a smile. But you're already doing great. They're healthy, happy, bonded to you. That's what matters. She paused. Can I ask you something? Axel tensed. What? Are you keeping them or looking to rehome? Axel looked down at Ash and Frost. Ash was chewing on his bootlace. Frost was pressed against his leg. Keeping them, he said firmly. Dr. Reeves nodded. Good. They need you. And I think you need them too. Axel didn't argue. Because she was right. On the drive home, Axel stopped at the general store, bought proper dog food, bowls, toys, beds. The store owner, an older man named Frank, raised an eyebrow. Didn't know you had dogs, Axel. I do now. Frank looked out the window at the truck, saw the puppies in the crate. German Shepherds? Yeah. Good dogs, loyal, smart. I know. Frank rang up the purchases, then hesitated. You doing okay out there, all alone? Axel met his eyes. Not alone anymore. Frank smiled. Good, that's good. Back at the cabin, Axel set up the new supplies. Proper food bowls, soft beds by the fire. He scattered the toys, rope tugs, squeaky balls, chew bones. Ash and Frost went crazy, attacking every new thing with puppy enthusiasm. Axel sat on the floor watching them and laughed. A real laugh, deep and genuine. When was the last time he'd laughed? He couldn't remember. That night, as the fire crackled and the puppies slept curled up together in their new beds, Axel pulled out a notebook. He hadn't written in it since Afghanistan. It was his journal, where he'd documented missions, thoughts, feelings he couldn't say out loud. The last entry was from 3 years ago, the day before the mission that had broken him. Axel stared at the blank page after it, then picked up a pen and wrote, January 28th. Found 2 puppies dying on my porch 3 weeks ago. Their mother gave everything to get them here, then died. I almost didn't open the door, but I did. Their names are Ash and Frost, German Shepherds, maybe 4 months old now. They're teaching me something I forgot, how to care about something other than survival, how to have a reason to wake up, how to feel. I don't know if I'm ready, but they don't care. They just need me. And maybe I need them too. He closed the notebook, looked at the sleeping puppies, and for the first time in 3 years, Axel went to sleep without dreading the nightmares, because he knew when he woke up, he wouldn't be alone. Spring came slowly to Montana. The snow didn't melt all at once. It retreated inch by inch, revealing brown grass and muddy earth. By March, the temperature had climbed to an almost pleasant 40 degrees, and Ash and Frost had transformed. They were no longer fragile puppies. They were adolescent dogs, gangly, energetic, full of personality. Ash had grown bold and protective. He'd bark at every sound, investigate every shadow. His coat had darkened to a rich black and tan. His ears stood tall and alert. Frost had remained gentler, but had developed quiet confidence. His lighter coat had filled in beautifully. He moved with grace, always watching, always thinking. They were nearly 6 months old now, and they'd saved Axel's life without even knowing it. Every morning, they'd wake him with gentle nudges and excited whimpers. Eager for breakfast, eager for the day. No more lying in bed staring at the ceiling. No more wondering if getting up was worth it, because Ash and Frost needed him. And that was enough. The nightmares still came. But now when Axel woke up gasping, there were two warm bodies pressed against him. Two pairs of eyes looking at him with concern. Ash would lick his face. Frost would rest his head on Axel's chest. And slowly, Axel's breathing would calm. They didn't judge. Didn't ask questions. Didn't need explanations. They just stayed. One morning in early April, Axel made a decision. He'd been thinking about it for weeks, avoiding it, making excuses. But watching Ash and Frost play in the morning sun, he knew he couldn't put it off anymore. He needed to visit the mother's grave, with them. He hadn't been back since the night he buried her, couldn't bring himself to. But the puppies, her puppies, deserved to know. That afternoon, Axel led Ash and Frost to the spot. The snow had melted here too. The stones he'd placed were visible. Green shoots of grass were beginning to grow around them. Ash sniffed the ground curiously. Frost sat down, watching Axel. "This is your mom," Axel said quietly, kneeling beside the grave. "She was brave, stronger than anything I've ever seen." Ash tilted his head, listening. "She walked through a blizzard, bleeding, freezing, dying." Axel's voice caught, but she didn't stop, because she had you two, and she needed to get you somewhere safe. He placed his hand on the stones. "She brought you to me. I don't know why, but she did." Frost moved closer, rested his head on Axel's knee. "I promised her I'd take care of you. And I have. And I will." Ash sat down beside his brother. Both dogs looked at the grave, as if they understood. "Thank you," Axel whispered to the stones, "for trusting me." The wind rustled through the new leaves on the trees, and Axel felt peace. That evening, Dr. Reeves called. Axel had given her his number during the last checkup, reluctantly. He didn't like phones. Didn't like unexpected contact. But when it rang, he answered. "Axel, it's Helena Reeves. Is something wrong?" "No, nothing wrong. I'm calling because I have a proposal." Axel frowned. "What kind of proposal?" "I've been thinking about Ash and Frost, about how well you've trained them, how responsive they are, how bonded to you." "Okay. Have you ever considered therapy dog training?" Axel was silent. "What?" "Therapy dog training, specifically for veterans. There's a program that pairs trained dogs with vets dealing with PTSD, depression, trauma." Axel's chest tightened. Just hear me out. Ash and Frost have the temperament. They're calm, responsive, empathetic. And you have the experience, both as a veteran and as their handler." "I'm not a therapist." "No, but you understand what it's like. And these dogs, they've already helped you, haven't they?" Axel looked at Ash and Frost lying by the fire. "Yeah," he admitted quietly. "They have. Then imagine what they could do for others." Axel was quiet for a long moment. "I'll think about it. That's all I ask. I'll email you information. No pressure." She hung up. Axel sat there, phone in hand. Therapy dogs, for veterans. The idea was terrifying. It would mean training, certification, interacting with people, leaving his isolation, everything he'd been avoiding. But it would also mean purpose, a way to help others the way Ash and Frost had helped him. He looked at the dogs again. "What do you think, boys?" Ash barked, tail wagging. Frost tilted his head thoughtfully. "Yeah," Axel said. "I don't know either, but the seed was planted. Over the next weeks, Axel researched therapy dog certification, training requirements, veteran support programs. The more he read, the more it made sense. Dogs like Ash and Frost, calm, intelligent, bonded, could make a real difference. Veterans struggling with PTSD, like he had been, often responded better to animals than to people. No judgment, no pity, just presence. He thought about the nights Ash and Frost had pulled him out of nightmares, the mornings they'd given him a reason to get up, the moments of peace they'd brought to his chaotic mind. If they could do that for him, maybe they could do it for others, but it would require work, advanced training, socialization, temperament testing, public access skills, and it would require Axel to leave his cabin, to interact with the world again. The thought made him anxious. But looking at Ash and Frost, he'd do it. For them, for their mother, for the veterans who needed what he'd found. In May, Axel started formal training. He'd contacted Dr. Reeves. She'd connected him with a certified therapy dog trainer 2 towns over. Her name was Maria Santos, former Army herself, now dedicated to training service and therapy dogs for veterans. The first session was hard. Axel had to drive 90 minutes, had to be around other people, other dogs. His hands shook the entire drive, but Ash and Frost were calm in the truck, sensing his anxiety but not feeding into it. When they arrived at the training facility, a large barn converted into a training center, Maria was waiting. She was in her 40s, short, strong, no nonsense, military bearing still evident. "You must be Axel." "Yeah, and these are Ash and Frost." She knelt down, let the dog sniff her. Ash approached immediately, friendly but controlled. Frost was more cautious, but eventually came forward. "Good boys," Maria said, then looked up at Axel. "You've done excellent foundation training." "Thanks. But we're going to push them, and you. This isn't easy work." "I know." "Good. Let's start." The training was intense. Public access skills, navigating crowded spaces, ignoring distractions, remaining calm under pressure, advanced obedience, precise responses to commands even in chaotic environments, desensitization, exposing them to loud noises, sudden movements, unexpected situations, emotional responsiveness, learning to recognize signs of distress in handlers and respond appropriately. Ash excelled at the obedience work. He was sharp, focused, eager to please. Frost struggled initially with the public settings, too many stimuli, too much unpredictability, but slowly, with patience, he adapted. And Axel was struggling too, being around people again, following someone else's instructions, opening up about why he was doing this. Maria noticed. After one particularly hard session, she pulled him aside. "You doing okay?" "Fine." "Axel, I'm a vet too. I know what fine means." He was quiet. "This is hard for you, being here, being around people." "Yeah." "Why are you doing it?" Axel looked at Ash and Frost, practicing their downstays across the room. "Because they deserve to help people, the way they helped me." Maria nodded. "Good reason." She paused. "But you need to know something. If you certify them as therapy dogs, you're committing, not just them, you." "What do you mean?" "You're the handler. You go where they go. You interact with the veterans they help. You become part of the process." Axel's chest tightened. I know. You thought you could train them and hand them off, but it doesn't work that way. The bond between handler and dog is what makes this effective." She met his eyes. "So you need to decide. Are you really ready for this, or are you just trying to give your dogs a job so you can go back to hiding?" Axel flinched. Because she was right. Part of him had thought he could train Ash and Frost, certify them, and send them to help others while he stayed in his cabin. But that wasn't how this worked. If he wanted them to help veterans, he had to be willing to help too. That night back at the cabin, Axel sat by the fire. Ash and Frost were asleep at his feet. He thought about Maria's question. Was he ready? To leave his isolation, to face his trauma, to help others facing theirs? The answer should have been no. He wasn't ready. Wasn't healed, still had nightmares, still struggled. But he looked at the dogs. They weren't perfect either. Frost still got anxious in crowds. Ash still barked at shadows. But they were trying. Every day, getting better, growing stronger. Maybe he could too. Maybe healing wasn't about being perfect. Maybe it was about showing up, even when it was hard. "All right," Axel said quietly to the sleeping dogs. "We'll do this. Together." Over the next months, the training intensified. Twice a week, Axel drove to Maria's facility. Ash and Frost progressed rapidly. They learned to remain calm during panic attacks, staying close, providing pressure, grounding their handler. They learned to interrupt negative spirals, nudging, pawing gently, demanding attention. They learned to sense emotional distress before it became visible. Subtle cues in body language, breathing, tone. They were naturals. But the real test came in July. Maria arranged for them to visit a VA hospital. Real veterans, real trauma, real need. Axel almost backed out. The night before, he couldn't sleep, paced the cabin, considered canceling. But Ash and Frost watched him, calm, ready, trusting him. and he couldn't let them down. The VA hospital was 2 hours away. Axel drove in silence, hands tight on the wheel. Ash and Frost sat in the back seat wearing their training vests. When they arrived, Maria was waiting. "You ready?" "No." "Good. Means you care. Come on." They entered through a side door, walked down sterile corridors. Axel's heart was racing, hands sweating. This was a mistake. He wasn't ready. The dogs weren't ready. They entered a common room. 5 veterans sat there, various ages, various wars, all with the same look Axel recognized: haunted, disconnected, surviving but not living. Maria introduced them. "This is Axel, former Army, and these are Ash and Frost, therapy dogs in training." One of the veterans, a younger guy, maybe mid-20s, scoffed. "Dogs? That's supposed to help?" Maria smiled. "Why don't you find out?" She nodded to Axel. Axel's throat was dry, but he moved forward. "Ash, Frost, visit." The command they'd practiced. Permission to approach and interact. Ash moved first, walked to the skeptical veteran, sat in front of him, looked up with intelligent eyes. The veteran stared back. "What's he doing?" "Waiting for permission," Axel said quietly. "He won't push, but if you want, you can pet him." The veteran hesitated, then slowly reached out, touched Ash's head. Ash leaned into the touch, tail wagging gently. The veteran's expression softened. "He's soft." "Yeah." The veteran kept petting, and something in his face, the tension, the guard, eased. Frost had approached an older veteran sitting alone in the corner. The man hadn't looked up, hadn't acknowledged anyone, but Frost sat beside him, rested his head on the man's knee, and waited. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the man's hand moved, slowly, shaking slightly, touched Frost's fur, and the man started crying, quietly, shoulders shaking. Frost didn't move, just stayed, solid, present. Axel watched from across the room, felt his own throat tighten. This was why. They stayed for an hour. Ash and Frost rotated between the veterans. Some wanted to play, some wanted quiet company, some just wanted to pet them in silence. The dogs adapted to each one, and every single veteran, even the skeptical one, smiled at least once. When it was time to leave, the older veteran who'd cried called out, "Will you come back?" Axel looked at Maria. She nodded. "Yeah," Axel said. "We'll come back." The man's eyes glistened. "Thank you." In the truck on the way home, Axel was quiet, processing what he'd seen, what he'd felt. Those veterans, they were him, 6 months ago, a year ago, lost, alone, disconnected. And Ash and Frost had reached them, not with words, not with therapy techniques, just with presence, with loyalty, with unconditional acceptance. "You did good, boys," Axel said, voice rough with emotion. Ash barked from the back seat. Frost's tail thumped, and Axel realized something. He wasn't just training them, they were healing him. By the end of summer, Ash and Frost had been certified. Official therapy dogs, registered, qualified to work with veterans in hospitals, support groups, and one-on-one sessions. Maria presented them with their certificates and official vests. "You should be proud," she said. "They're exceptional." "Thanks." "And you did good too. I know this wasn't easy." Axel looked at Ash and Frost wearing their vests, tails wagging. "They made it worth it," Maria smiled. "So what's next? You joining a program? Volunteering regularly?" Axel hesitated. "I don't know, maybe." "Think about it. There are a lot of vets who need what you three have." That night, Axel made a decision. He wasn't ready to join a formal program, not yet. But he could do something. He called Dr. Reeves. "Helena, it's Axel." "Hey, how'd certification go?" "They passed, both of them." "That's wonderful." "Yeah, listen, I've been thinking about what you said, about helping other vets." "Okay, what if I started something here, informal, small, just veterans who need time with the dogs?" "Like what?" "I don't know, once a week maybe? They could come to the cabin, spend time with Ash and Frost. No pressure, no formal therapy, just quiet. And dogs." Helena was quiet for a moment. "Axel, that's a beautiful idea." "You think it would work?" "I think it would save lives." So it began. Axel put the word out through Dr. Reeves Maria and the local VA. Veterans dealing with PTSD, depression, or isolation could visit his cabin. No appointment needed, no questions asked. Just come. Spend time with the dogs. Find some peace. The first visitor came on a Saturday in September. A man in his 50s, Vietnam vet. Hadn't spoken to anyone in months. He sat on Axel's porch for 2 hours, said maybe 10 words, but Frost sat with him the entire time, head on the man's lap. When the veteran left, he shook Axel's hand. Thank you. The second visitor was a woman, Iraq vet, couldn't sleep without nightmares. Ash stayed with her, let her bury her face in his fur and cry. He doesn't judge, she whispered. No, Axel said. He doesn't. Word spread. More veterans came, one at a time, sometimes 2 or 3. Some wanted to talk, some wanted silence. All of them found something they needed, and Axel found purpose, not in isolation, not in hiding, but in helping, in sharing what Ash and Frost had given him, in turning his pain into something useful. One evening, a veteran asked him, "How did you know that this would help?" Axel looked at Ash and Frost playing in the yard. I didn't. But these two, they saved me when I didn't even know I needed saving. He turned to the veteran. I figure if they could do that for me, they can do it for anyone. The veteran nodded slowly. Yeah, I think you're right. And as the sun set over the Montana mountains, Axel felt something he hadn't felt in years, gratitude, not just for surviving, but for living. A year after finding Ash and Frost on his doorstep, Axel's life was unrecognizable. The cabin that had once been a prison of silence was now a sanctuary of healing. Every week, veterans made the journey up the mountain. Some drove, some hitchhiked, one walked 12 miles. They came broken, lost, desperate, and they left with something they hadn't had in years: hope. Ash and Frost had helped over 30 veterans in the past 6 months. Some came once and never returned, got what they needed and moved on. Others came every week, found a routine, found community. And Axel had found himself again, not the man he'd been before the war. That person was gone forever, but someone new, someone stronger, someone with purpose. One cold November evening, a truck pulled up to the cabin. Axel was outside chopping wood. Ash and Frost were playing in the early snow. He didn't recognize the vehicle. A man stepped out, late 60s, gray hair, military bearing even in civilian clothes. Something about him was familiar. The man walked forward slowly, stopped 10 feet away. Axel Martinez? Axel set down the axe. Yeah, who's asking? The man's voice caught. It's me, Colonel Hendricks. Axel's heart stopped. Colonel Hendricks, his commanding officer in Afghanistan, the man who'd sent him on that last mission, the mission that had broken him. Sir? The word came automatically. At ease, son. I'm not your CO anymore. They stood in awkward silence. Ash trotted over, curious. Frost followed. Hendricks looked at them. These the dogs I've been hearing about? Yeah, Ash and Frost. They're beautiful. Another silence. Why are you here, sir? Hendricks took a breath. I came to apologize. Axel frowned. For what? For that mission, for what happened to you, for not doing more when you came back. You didn't. I did. I saw you struggling, saw you isolating, and I let you leave without fighting harder to get you help. Hendricks's voice was rough. I've lost 3 men from that deployment to suicide in the past 2 years. 3. And I thought you might be next. Axel's throat tightened. But then I heard about this place, about what you're doing, about these dogs. Hendricks looked at Ash and Frost. And I had to see for myself, had to know you were okay. Axel was quiet for a long moment. I wasn't. For a long time, I wasn't okay. And now? Axel looked at his cabin, at Ash and Frost, at the mountain that had once been his hiding place and was now his home. Now I'm better. Not perfect, but better. Hendricks nodded slowly. Because of them? Yeah, because of them. The colonel knelt down, let Ash sniff his hand. How'd you find them? They found me, middle of the night, frozen. Their mother died getting them here. Jesus. I almost didn't open the door. Axel's voice cracked. I was I was in a bad place. Didn't want to care about anything, didn't want attachments. But you opened it. Yeah, and they saved my life. Hendricks stroked Ash's head. The dog leaned into his touch. You know what's amazing? The colonel said. Their mother. She was dying. In pain, alone, but her last act was to get her babies somewhere safe. He looked up at Axel. She didn't save herself. She saved them. And in doing that, she saved you. Axel hadn't thought of it that way, but Hendricks was right. That mother dog, whose name he'd never know, had given everything and created a ripple that was still spreading. There's something else, Hendricks said, standing. What? I run a veterans program now, statewide. We're trying to expand access to therapy dog programs. He pulled out a folder. I want to fund what you're doing here, officially. Make it a recognized program, get you resources, training support, maybe even help you scale up. Axel stared at the folder. I don't know if I want to scale up. Why not? Because this works because it's small, quiet, no pressure, just veterans and dogs and space to breathe. Hendricks nodded. Fair. But what if you could keep it that way and still help more people? How? Satellite programs. Other veterans doing what you're doing. You train them, help them get dogs, set up their own small operations. Axel was quiet. You'd be creating a network, not an institution. A movement. The idea was overwhelming. But also, it made sense. What if other veterans in other isolated places could do this, find their own ash and frost, find their own purpose? I'll think about it, Axel said. Hendricks smiled. That's all I ask. Before he left, the colonel turned back. Axel, I am proud of you. What you've built here, it matters. Thank you, sir. And those 3 men I lost, I think about them every day. Wonder what would have happened if they'd found something like this. His voice broke. You're saving lives. Don't ever forget that. After Hendricks left, Axel sat on the porch. Ash and frost settled beside him. The sun was setting over the mountains, painting the snow orange and pink. It was the same view he'd stared at for 2 years while contemplating whether life was worth living. But now it looked different, beautiful, full of possibility. What do you think, boys? Axel asked. Should we do this? Help other people start programs like ours? Ash barked, tail wagging. Frost rested his head on Axel's knee, looking up with those wise eyes. Yeah, Axel said, stroking their fur. I think you're right. That winter, something unexpected happened. A woman arrived at the cabin, mid-30s, Marine Corps tattoo on her forearm, haunted eyes Axel recognized immediately. I'm here for the dogs, she said. Come on in. Her name was Sarah, 2 tours in Iraq, came back with PTSD and survivor's guilt. She sat on the floor with Ash and Frost for 3 hours. Didn't say much, just cried and pet them and breathed. When she finally spoke, she said, I lost my team. All of them. I was the only one who made it out. Axel knew that pain. I'm sorry. Everyone says that, but they don't get it. They weren't there. No, but I was there. Different place. Different war. Same guilt. Sarah looked at him. Does it get better? Axel thought about his answer. Not better. Different. You learn to carry it. And some days, he gestured to Ash and Frost, you find something that makes it worth carrying. Sarah came back the next week, and the week after. By the 4th visit, she was smiling, talking about plans, thinking about the future. I want to do what you're doing, she said one day. What do you mean? This, help other vets, maybe get my own dog, start my own place. Axel felt something stir in his chest. This was it, what Hendricks had been talking about. I could help you with that. Sarah's eyes lit up. Really? Yeah, I know trainers, know the process. If you're serious, I'm serious. 3 months later, Sarah adopted 2 German Shepherd siblings from a rescue. Axel helped her train them, guided her through certification, helped her set up a small program in her town. She named them Hope and Anchor, and she started helping veterans in her area. The ripple kept spreading. By spring, 3 more veterans had started similar programs, each with rescue dogs, each creating space for healing. The network Hendricks had envisioned was becoming real. But Axel kept his own program small, intimate, personal, because that was what worked. One Saturday in May, something happened that changed everything. A teenage girl showed up at the cabin. She was maybe 17, nervous, kept looking over her shoulder. "Can I help you?" Axel asked. "Are you the guy with the therapy dogs?" "Yeah." Can I see them? I'm not a veteran, but I really need..." She started crying. Axel's protective instincts kicked in. "Are you safe? Do you need me to call someone?" "No, I'm okay. I heard about your dogs, and I'm having a really bad day and I didn't know where else to go." Axel hesitated. His program was for veterans. That was the mission. But looking at this girl, clearly in crisis, clearly desperate, he couldn't turn her away. "Come on." He brought her inside, introduced her to Ash and Frost. The transformation was immediate. She sat on the floor, the dogs surrounded her, and she cried into their fur for 20 minutes. When she finally calmed down, she told her story. Her father was a veteran, Afghanistan. He'd struggled with PTSD for years. Recently, it had gotten worse. He won't get help, won't talk to anyone, just sits in his room. She wiped her eyes. I thought if I could understand what he's going through, maybe I could help him." Axel's heart broke. "What's your name?" "Emma." "Emma. Your dad is lucky to have you, but you can't fix him. Only he can do that. But what you can do is show him there's help, that people understand, that he's not alone." Axel pulled out a card. His contact info, the network info. "Give this to your dad. Tell him veterans come here. No judgment, no pressure, just dogs and understanding." Emma took the card. "You think he'll come?" "I don't know, but he might, for you." 2 weeks later, a man showed up, early 40s, hollowed out, barely holding on. "My daughter said I should come." "Emma?" "Yeah," Axel nodded. "Come on in." The man, his name was Robert, stayed for 4 hours. Ash never left his side. By the end, Robert was talking, really talking, about the war, the losses, the guilt, things he'd never told anyone. When he left, he shook Axel's hand. "I didn't think anyone would understand." "We do." "Can I come back?" "Anytime." Robert came back every week for 6 months. Slowly, he started healing, started talking to his daughter again, started therapy, started living. And Emma sent Axel a letter. "Thank you for giving me my dad back." Axel kept that letter, pinned it to his wall, a reminder of why this mattered. By the time fall came around again, Axel had helped over 100 veterans, some directly, some through the network he'd helped create. Ash and Frost were now 3 years old, fully grown, beautifully trained, and still as loving as the day he'd found them. One evening, Axel sat on the porch, the first anniversary of starting the program. Ash and Frost lay at his feet. Older now, calmer, but still alert. Still ready. Axel thought about that night 2 years ago, the scratching at the door, the 2 dying puppies, the mother who'd given everything. If he'd closed that door, he wouldn't be here. Wouldn't have found purpose, wouldn't have helped anyone. He'd probably be dead. But he'd opened it, and everything changed. "Thank you," he whispered, to the mother he'd never known. "Thank you for choosing my door." The wind rustled through the trees, and somewhere, Axel felt, she heard him. His phone buzzed, a text from Sarah. "Just had our 50th veteran visit. Hope and Anchor are amazing. Thank you for everything." Axel smiled, typed back, "That's all you. Proud of you." Another text. "From Maria. News wants to do a story on the network. You interested?" Axel thought about it. Part of him wanted to say no, to stay private, hidden. But this wasn't about him anymore. It was about the veterans who needed to know help existed. About the dogs waiting in shelters who could become someone's Ash and Frost. About spreading hope. "Let's do it." The news story aired 3 weeks later. It featured Axel, Ash, Frost, and the entire network, showed veterans healing, dogs saving lives, community forming. The response was overwhelming. Within days, Axel received hundreds of messages, veterans wanting to visit, people wanting to donate, others wanting to start their own programs. It was too much, too fast, but also, it was proof. Proof that what started with 2 dying puppies on a frozen porch had become something bigger than Axel could have imagined, a movement. On a quiet December evening, Axel took Ash and Frost to the mother's grave. It had become a ritual. Once a month they'd visit. Snow covered the ground again. The stones were visible. Fresh flowers from Emma lay beside them. "We've helped a lot of people this year," Axel said softly. "Over 100. Because of you." Ash and Frost sat quietly beside the grave. "Your babies, they're heroes now, certified therapy dogs, saving lives." Axel's voice broke. "I wish you could see them, see what they've become." He placed his hand on the stones. "But maybe you can. Maybe you know." The snow fell softly, peacefully, and Axel felt that familiar presence, that sense of being heard. "I'm keeping my promise. I'll take care of them. Always." Ash nuzzled his hand. Frost leaned against his leg, and Axel knew he wasn't alone anymore. None of them were. That night, back at the cabin, Axel opened his journal, the one he'd started writing in again after finding Ash and Frost. He turned to a blank page and wrote, "December 15th. 2 years ago, I was alone, broken, waiting to die. Then 2 puppies showed up at my door, dying themselves. Their mother had walked through a blizzard to bring them to safety, then gave her last breath. I saved them. But really, they saved me. Since then, Ash and Frost have helped over 100 veterans find hope again. We've started a network, inspired others, created something bigger than I ever imagined. But the most important thing, I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm living, and I'm grateful for that mother who chose my door, for these 2 incredible dogs who became my purpose, for every veteran who walked up this mountain looking for help. This is what healing looks like. Not perfect, not easy, but real and worth fighting for." He closed the journal, looked at Ash and Frost sleeping peacefully by the fire, and smiled, because tomorrow another veteran would arrive, looking for hope, for understanding, for a reason to keep going. And Axel, with Ash and Frost by his side, would be there, ready to help, ready to prove that no matter how dark it gets, there's always a door worth knocking on, there's always someone willing to open it, and there's always hope. Even in the coldest winter, even in the deepest pain, there's always hope. If this story touched you, we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Tell us about a time someone or something showed up when you needed them most. Hit that like button if you believe in second chances, and subscribe to K9 Valor Stories, because Axel's journey continues. Next episode, a veteran arrives with a dangerous request, and Axel must decide how far he's willing to go to help. Remember, you're never as alone as you think. There's always a door, there's always hope, there's always someone or something waiting to save you. Welcome to the pack.